I just saw the new Predator movie, Predator Badlands. Now, I don't usually talk about movies on this channel. That's not usually something I do. Live action films, not usually a thing I cover on this channel. But you know what? I am a bit of a cinephile. I do watch a lot of freaking live action films. So, what the hell? Let's talk about a live action movie for once. Predator Badlands. I have a lot of mixed feelings about this movie, man. When I first got out of the theater, it's like I wanted this, I wanted to like this, but I got mixed feelings when it comes to the tone. The tone of this movie, man. I think my overall feelings are disappointment. Before I go and spoil a lot of things about the movie, and you just want to know how I felt, I was a little disappointed with the tone of this movie. That I love the premise, I love the setup, I love the idea, but the execution and the overall tone was pretty goofy and a little silly to me, and I'll get into why. But if you just want to know what I thought, that's what I thought of the movie. Okay, so let's get into why I feel that way. And there will be spoilers now. Um, so this was directed by Dan Trachtenberg, who also directed the movie 310, not 310, that's a Western. I almost said 310 Yuma. 10 Cloverfield Lane. He directed that. It's a really cool little chamber horror movie starring John Goodman, and it was really cool. It was really good. I really liked it. It was probably the best thing to come out of that Cloverfield thing. It was barely even related to the original Cloverfield, but didn't matter. A great little movie. And then he went on and directed Prey, which was a prequel to the Predator franchise, and I thought that was actually a really cool movie. Even if, I thought some of the visual effects were a little CG heavy and it's a little on the simplistic side, maybe, but then again, so was the original Predator. And I thought, to its credit, it was a nice throwback to like where that franchise started. And it did just enough to kind of throw its own unique take into the mix. And I really liked Prey. It was pretty solid. It was a solid movie. So I thought to myself, this guy can direct. He can make movies that are thrilling and tight and concise. So we get to Predator Badlands, and when I first started seeing like trailers and stuff for this movie, and I'll admit I didn't see much. I saw just the very basic essentials. You got one of the predator creatures, the Yautja, which we now know they're called. Um, is the main character now. He's the protagonist. We took a monster that was scary and was always hunting down human protagonists, and now he's actually the main character. And he partners up with a synthetic android named Thea, who is actually the same synthetic androids from the Alien movies. So once again, we are combining worlds here. It is set in the same universe as the Alien movies and the Predator movies, which isn't anything new. Obviously, this has been done before with the AVP movies and comics and all that shit, and that's perfectly fine. Overall, I like this idea. I like this idea, and what I was hoping, what I was expecting from this movie was a simple survival film. It's no longer a horror movie where, this predator creature is stalking humans or whatever. In fact, there's no humans in this movie, which is very interesting. The closest thing to human would be the very humanoid looking Thea, who's a synthetic, but she's still a robot. So, like, there's no humans in this movie. Um, and I thought, okay, you can do that. You can have one of these creatures, as unsettling and creepy looking as it is, and make him a main character. And to be fair, the movie does set that up pretty well. And I thought to myself, all I want this to be is a basic survival movie set on another planet, another world. And this android and this Yautja, they work together and they survive. And I thought, that's good. In terms of spirit, like that could still work like any other Predator movie. It's just a role reversal. And I thought it was a neat idea. And I thought the entire opening act of this movie, like the first half hour or whatever, roughly, I thought it was like a B plus. It was like really pretty good, effective filmmaking. First of all, right off the bat, this movie does the most important thing right off the bat, and that's make us care about these vagina-faced creatures, the Yautja. Like right off the bat, I actually cared about this character as a main character because what the movie does is it sets up a good reason for us to feel sympathy for Deck, the main Yautja character. Right off the bat, he's sold as an underdog. He's not as strong as his other species, the rest of his clan. We see his brother sacrifice himself to his very brutal and ruthless father right at the start of the movie, and he's sent off on this mission. And it's like, okay, effective. Like right off the bat, even though it's a tiny bit tropey, and there's more of that to come, the rest of the movie, we'll get to that, but like, even though it's a tiny bit tropey, how it's set up, the dynamic between Deck and his brother Quay, these two Yautja creatures sparring, and we get a tiny little bit of the culture, but it's like it's a tiny bit tropey, a little bit. There's a little bit of a Star Warsy element, even at the very start of the movie, where it's like they're dueling with swords, and the dialogue kind of feels a little Star Warsy. I'm like, okay, it's whatever. I do like the fact that all the Yautja characters talk in their own language, and it's all subtitled. That's another thing that I think deserves some points because it does at least create some believability there. It does help, sell them as alien creatures. But then we get to the rest of the movie, and again, the whole opening act is mostly a B. It's a B plus. But I had some problems even with the opening acts of the movie, like the alien creatures that Deck encounters, like those first vine creatures that show up and he starts fighting. Right off the bat, I have a problem with like a lot of the alien creatures in this movie that just feel very video gamey to me, which I know might sound like a strange thing to say because it's like video games are awesome. Why is that a problem? Well, because they don't feel like believable, like creatures living on this planet. You know what I mean? It's a little too video gamey. It's a little too like, oh, it would be a cool idea to have like these vine things snap out of nowhere and start attacking him. But it's like they don't feel like natural beings to me on this planet. And this is a problem that really gets bigger and bigger as the movie goes along for me personally, is the believability. The lack of weight in this movie is a problem for me. And it does get worse later on when the creatures get even more like tropey and a little too over the top and fantastical. Because you got to remember, this is set in the same universe that gave us Ridley Scott's original Alien. This is set in the same universe with the original Predator, where this creature is just stalking humans through a rainforest. Like, very grounded stuff. And I do think this movie has a lot of that. There's a lot of, like, stuff that breaks that for me. That's, like, too over the top, too fantastical. These creatures are too, they feel like bosses from a video game or something. They may look cool, and Rule of Cool, I do subscribe to. I don't want to sound like a hypocrite. I've always defended that in a lot of media. I don't necessarily want that in a Predator or Alien movie. And this is kind of both, even if there's no xenomorphs in the movie. There's a lot of alien shit and Predator shit in this movie. And it's mixed together with a lot of fantastical shit that feels like it belongs in, again, kind of like a game or something. But anyhow, uh, again, the whole opening act, when he first meets Thea the android, I do think that works really well. She's played really well by Ellie Fanning. She's definitely very charming in this movie, kind of funny. But again, as well set up as this is, I like how she's glitching out when she talks. There's like a bugginess to her because she's torn in half when he first meets her, and she's kind of a little glitchy. I kind of like that they added to her voice or whatever. And she's got some funny lines in the beginning when he first meets her, and they team up, and it didn't go too overboard for me in the beginning. Like there's some humor, but I thought, okay, it worked for me in the beginning of the movie simply because Thea is a curious synthetic. She's wired that way. The movie even goes so far as to explain that, like, hey, these synthetics are more like sensitive and curious, and they ask questions and they want to learn stuff because they're sent to this planet by Weyland Yutani to examine creatures and stuff and ultimately capture them and bring them back because they always want that. But ultimately, I thought Thea worked pretty well, even in a comical way in the beginning of the movie. So that worked. All that worked. Them teaming up, the Yautja and her teaming up, the little dynamic they form, the little buddy dynamic they form, really worked for me at the beginning of this movie. But then that baby alien shows up, this baby alien monkey thing that's basically Baby Yoda 2.0. It's just a cute critter sidekick. And when this thing first showed up, in the movie, popped out of nowhere, out of the jungle they're in or whatever, I thought, okay, it's just a kind of a dumb looking random alien that's probably going to get eaten by a bigger alien. They think, oh, that's where'd this little thing come from? And then a bigger alien comes and eats them. That's what I was expecting. Because when I first saw this thing, it was such an ugly, forgettable design and such a stupid little looking creature to me. I was like, this feels very Star Warsy, kind of like random alien shit. And this thing's probably just going to get eaten, right? No, no. Apparently, the minute we see this thing, we're supposed to fall in love with him because he becomes like a Grogu style sidekick. He becomes their pet essentially. Um, Thea and Deck's pet, and it just becomes part of this little party, this little team. And the as soon as I saw this thing like grin and make faces and save Thea and Deck from the big monster that shows up at that scene, I was like, oh, this is oh no, what are we doing? And it got yeah, it got a little too sweet and kiddie, and that's when I was like, where are we going with this? Because this doesn't feel believable anymore. This doesn't feel grounded. This doesn't feel like a grounded sci-fi action thriller anymore. This feels like we're going into like kind of Disney or Marvel territory, and surely enough, that's kind of what this movie turns into, because yeah, that little monkey thing becomes a main character essentially, and there's just too many cute moments with him, and I don't even find them that cute because I think this thing is ugly. I don't even think he works as a cute sidekick, but this movie did not need one of those to begin with, so it just doesn't work for me at all, and I hated that creature. And the more it goes along, the more this movie goes along, the more you're supposed to fall in love with him and love him and feel for him. And then you find out the big monster that Deck was supposed to go and hunt. That was his mission. That's what he was supposed to go to this death planet for. You find out that thing is actually the baby monkey, but the baby monkey alien's father, and it's like, oh god, no! And we're supposed to care about the little creature, and it turns into this like story about, oh, the real monsters aren't the creatures on the planet. The real monsters are Wayland Yutani and the androids that are coming to take them away. And of course, Thea and her whole like angle with her sister, who's basically just an evil villain. Like I guess the idea is that she's supposed to be more by the books and following her mission and to come and capture the creatures on the planet. And Thea, was another Wayland Yutani robot who got caught up in them trying to capture these creatures, and she got torn in half and left just sitting around until Deck found her and they formed their little system. And yeah, she's that's supposed to be what makes her the villain. She just sticks to her guns, sticks to her programming, whatever. But honestly, the two characters, both of which are played by Lee Fanning, by the way, um, these synthetic sisters are so different in personality, and like it's kind of like a lot of things in this movie. It's a little too comical. It's a little too like like Saturday morning cartoon logic. Like she's a little too like bad, like evil. And by the end of this movie, she straight up just feels like a Marvel villain. I don't know. A lot of things in this movie just get very Marvel like. And again, I like some of those movies. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with going over the top and with certain material. Like hell, I watched the Superman movie this summer and thought that was actually pretty fun. But that's Superman. I expect that to be a little corny and over the top and whatever. I don't really want that from Predator, And again, because of the PG-13 rating and the fact that there's no humans in the film, it's like you already took a certain amount of bite out of it. And I would have been fine with this, again, just being a dry, serious survival story with this robot and this alien working together to survive this planet. But it just doesn't, it's so, it gives in so much to like these comic book tropes and like, we gotta have a cute critter sidekick. We gotta have this arc for this character that's gotta overcome this and that. And it just, there's gotta be some funny lines here, and there's gotta be, it just can't, it gets a little too formulaic for me, which is funny because I really thought this movie, given its premise, was gonna be more bold when it comes to structure and plot and things like that. A little more raw, a little more grounded, because you kind of need that to balance out how, like, kind of like weightless all of this feels. Like we're just dealing with synthetics and alien monsters. There's no humans in this movie. There's no bloodshed ever. It's just like even most of the kills or like semi-violent moments are just synthetics and alien creatures. So I feel like this movie almost needed to be more grounded to kind of balance that out, and it really doesn't do that. It doesn't care at all. It's like it almost feels like it's marketed towards tweens or preteens or something. Like it feels very, again, kind of shallow, kind of weightless. It gets very sappy with its themes, and there's definitely a message there. There's definitely a theme to this movie, but again, it feels a little weightless. The only time I ever felt anything dramatically in this movie, any dramatic weight whatsoever, was when Deck's brother Quay is killed at the beginning. You know, his Yautja brother. That's the only time I really felt anything. And I gotta give credit. I gotta give some credit to the movie for that. I mean, you made me care about the loss of one of these monsters, these toothy vagina looking things. You made me care about one of these things, and that's pretty good. But like the rest of the movie, ironically, just doesn't have that weight to me. It just doesn't. Like by the time you get to the end, it's mostly just a whole lot of like action and synthetics and monsters fighting, and it just kind of feels a little hollow to me. Furthermore, there's a scene at the end where like the big creature that Jack was supposed to hunt, the Yautja, gets killed, and we're supposed to feel sad. Like it's supposed to be a sad moment. Little baby aliens mourning the creature's death and everything. And I was like, yeah, I don't feel anything. Like, am I supposed to be sad? Is this supposed to be a sad moment because now we wanted to save this creature because Weyland Yutani was capturing it, and it almost turns into like a little bit of an Avatar situation where like, oh, now it's about being good to nature, and it's like, oh, what are we doing? This is a Predator movie. This is a Predator movie. Like, I'm all for switching the dynamics. It's no longer a horror movie, okay? It's no longer maybe even not even a R-rated movie anymore. That's fine, but it goes so far in the other direction that by the end of this movie, I felt like I was watching like a comic book movie, like a James Gunn movie. Even the cliffhanger at the end kind of feels like that. It feels like it's setting up a Marvel style franchise, and I'm like, that's not what I want from Predator. Like, I've heard people who love this movie and praise this movie compare it to like a Dark Horse comic book or something, from like the old Predator comics and stuff. And I'm like, hey, if this worked for you and it reminded you of that, that's a side of this franchise that I guess has always been there. And for me, it's just like, does every franchise need to become that? Does every franchise need to become more fantastical and more over the top and quippy and silly? And I'm not into it. I don't want everything to be that. I don't want everything to be that pulpy and over the top. Because, yeah, at the end of the day, everything in this movie felt either too Star Warsy to me, too Marvel like, or too video gamey. Like, everything just felt a little too over the top, a little too weightless. And I think back to like Ridley Scott's original Alien and even the original Predator, which, I'm not saying it's a sacred movie or anything, still a little pulpy, a little trashy, but even that felt very grounded. Like this movie, Predator Badlands, is set in that same universe, and it just doesn't feel believable to me. It doesn't feel grounded enough. It feels very over the top. Like it goes a little overboard. And yeah, it just didn't work for me personally as much as I wanted it to. I feel like in my head there's a different version of this movie where you can still have these two characters working together. You can still have that same setup, but maybe do it in a drier way, a little heavier, a little drier, have aliens that are less over the top and dialogue that maybe is a little less quippy and toned down, and get rid of the baby alien monkey, and could have had a better movie in my opinion. That's more about atmosphere, more about survival, and could have had the dramatic weight and heaviness that like the original Alien had or the original Predator had, and this did not have that for me. So a little too cartoony for my tastes, which I know sounds, a little contradictory coming from an anime fan, but but again, this is when it comes to live action Predator or Alien movie, I kind of want things to be a little more grounded. I want a little more realism. I want to believe in this world, and I just didn't believe in it. There's never a point while watching Predator Badlands where I believed in anything that was happening after like the opening act. It just got a little too tropey, a little too comic booky for my taste. But I'm not gonna say I hated this movie. I thought it was, for the right person. If this is what you wanted for the Predator franchise in terms of tone, if you like this more Marvel-y style direction or something, more comic book style direction, you'll love this movie, probably. For me, I wanted something closer in tone to Prey, and ultimately, this didn't have that. So, yeah, I guess that's my thoughts overall on the Predator Badlands movie. It's a huge success at the box office, and a lot of people do love it. So I'm definitely in the minority here. But what did you guys think? Let me know in the comments. What did you think of the movie? You know, was it the best Predator movie for you? Do you prefer the older ones? Let me know. I love the original. I thought the second one was pretty okay too. Even Predators with Adrian Brody, I thought was a pretty decent movie. And Prey, I really, really liked. So I don't know. It's never been my favorite sci-fi franchise or anything, but I always liked Predator, and this one just kind of misses the mark for me tonally. But until next time, guys, you get to burning and live for the past.